Okay, let's do it, shall we? Okay, so here Miss Han is going to talk about a biology topic. What is it going to be, Miss Han? The cell
The
membrane, right?
yeah,
And then what else should you talk about? Cell membrane, structure, and their specific functions. There's a lot of things in there, you know.
yeah,
And you have to also talk about cellular structures, like 11 different organelles, you know, 11 cái organelle khác nhau nha.
yeah.
And there are specific function, những chức năng cụ thể nó để làm gì. And
Yeah.
then what else should you talk about?
I'm going to talk about the cell cycle and cell reproduction.
Reproduction,
Reproduction.
mitosis and meiosis, and then this thing. Will you talk about reproduction and heredity as well? Di truyền, heredity,
Heredity.
life
Yeah.
cycles, sexual and asexual reproductions. Shall you talk about that as well?
No, I think there's too much thing to cover up on the mitosis and meiosis.
Right. Okay. So let's start first with the cell membrane then. Its function first. Structures and functions. Đi từ từ vào cell membrane để làm cái gì trước đã? Nó bao gồm cái gì trước đã? Like what is inside the cell membrane and what is the cell membrane function first? Okay.
Yeah. So the cell membrane, it contains a lot of compounds. Mostly it phospholipid is the most composed in a cell membrane. The structure of the phospholipid, it contains a phosphate group plus two fatty acid chains and glycerol molecule. The two fatty acid chains, they are non-polar. We can say they are hydrophobic. Phospholipid has a polar head and two non-polar tails. The reason for that is, it kind of like easy to explain if we have a picture of the phospholipid, but like water exists in the extracellular fluid. Outside the cell, and it also present in the intercellular space, inside of the cell. So all of the phospholipid, the polar head are faced towards water, and the non-polar tails are faced away from water. And there is a word to describe the dual property nature of phospholipid. That is amphipathic, I think.
Amphipathic.
Yeah, amphipathic. So we can say that phospholipids are amphipathic because it is a molecule with hydrophobic and hydrophilic parts. Another compounds in a cell membrane is protein. So cell membrane, it consists a lot of different proteins. There is if you see a circular that is a globular protein. If you see like some proteins on the surface of the phospholipid.
Surface, không phải surface nha. Nó là surface âm đầu. Surface âm hai là âm square đó. Surface.
Surface. That is a surface protein, and we also have peripheral protein. Is on the exterior. A peripheral protein peripheral protein it has different shape. It can be a round or in a square, but mostly the peripheral protein in a square shape is not a globular protein. And there are two big protein we should discuss. That is a transmembrane protein. This type of protein is danced across the membrane. Part of it is outside of the membrane, and the rest of it is inside of the membrane. We also have the integral protein. It is embedded within the membrane. So all of the membrane proteins are all transmembrane proteins are integral proteins, but not all the integral proteins are transmembrane proteins. Also, some of the surface proteins and peripheral proteins can function as an enzyme. They can speed up chemical reaction within the cell as well. And also, we have a compound called glycoprotein. That is a protein attached to a sugar gene. So those hexagonal shape represent the 6-carbon glucose unit and glucose unit. So a carbohydrate attached to a protein. So many glycoproteins, which are found on the surface of cellular membranes, they play a role in the immune system with antibodies. They function as self-recognition and cell-to-cell interactions. Also, we have beside glycoprotein, we have glycolipid. It is a sugar unit attached to a phospholipid, and it plays a role in cell-to-cell interaction and cell signaling. So how things flow into and out of the membrane. So the cell membrane is semi permeable, which means it allows certain things to get in and block other things, like prevent other things from entering the
yes.
There are with small non-polar molecules, they can easily diffuse into or out of the cell. For example, when we take a breath, we breathe in oxygen. So oxygen flows into the cell. And when we exhale, we breathe out oxygen, carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide float out of the cell. So oxygen and carbon dioxide are non-polar molecules. Example, they can easily pass in or out of the cellular membrane.
Right, I see.
That is non-polar. So with small polar molecules, for example, we have water. Water can diffuse through the membrane as well, but it cannot do that. Cannot do it easily. It is a very slow process. Yeah, process.
Did you say that polar molecules? Did you say that non-polar molecules cannot get through the cell membrane easily?
Yeah.
If the cell membrane itself, inside of cell membrane, there's a lot of phospholipids. It should be very non-polar over there, so it should allow non-polar molecules to get through easily.
Yeah.
Em phải nói đúng ra là mấy cái phân tử không phân cực, tức là mấy phân tử mà nó béo á, nó sẽ vượt qua được cái màng dễ dàng, tại vì bên trong màng là cái lớp phospholipids nó cũng béo luôn, nó đồng tính chất. Như vậy, cùng tính chất như vậy nó phải cho những phân tử béo béo non-polar đi qua dễ dàng chứ. Đây là lý do tại sao mà khi em dùng kem dưỡng da mà nó thành phần béo á, nó có thể nó thấm vô da dễ hơn nếu mà so với lại cái giọt nước mà em để trên da á. So this is the reason why when you use hand cream or any kind of cream on your skin, the fatty cream actually enter the skin faster than a droplet of water, you know. So be careful with this one. Don't confuse it, okay? Polar molecules polar molecules does not get it through the cell membrane easily. You have to understand that. That's why we need what's it called? Ion channels, you know, channels to let them through selectively. Những cái phân tử mà nó phân cực á, ion chẳng hạn, thì nó sẽ không qua màng dễ dàng. Chính vì lý do đó nó mới cần mấy cái ion channel nha, và những cái channel khác trên cái màng nha, và nó cho nó qua một cách mà chọn lọc selectively. I think you misunderstood that part. Did you talk about the cholesterol molecule on the cell membrane?
No, not yet. I think I'll talk them later.
Okay. Please continue now.
I just want to clarify a little bit. So there are special proteins that can easily transport water into and out of the cell. That's called aquaporins, right? And for other particles like ions, we have potassium or sodium. They cannot flow in or out of the cellular membrane without the help of the transport protein. I mean, they just can't pass through the membrane. The reason for that is because their charges are significantly greater than water. Water is neutral, but it has partial charge, which make it polar. While ions, they have a complete full positive or negative charge, and so the protein they need is called a channel protein.
It's called
a channel protein or
channel
ion
protein. Channel protein, yeah, or ion channel, something like that.
And also for big molecules like glucose, a channel protein cannot have. Now we have a carrier protein. So that is different types of protein. Now I'm going to talk about the cholesterol. So the structure of cholesterol is it has a polar region and a non-polar region. It has the hydroxide group, which is polar because of the hydrogen bonding.
Only one hydroxide group, okay? Nó có một OH thôi nha.
Oh, yeah.
And then the rest of the molecule is
it has 4 Fields ring, which is the non-polar region. So the hydroxide group is attracted to water, so it faces outside of the cellular membrane, while the 4 Fields ring, they are hydrophobic region, so it's going to be pointing towards the interior of the membrane. Cholesterol, the function of cholesterol is important. It acts as a buffer, so it maintains the fluidity of the membrane. So if we increase the temperature, the fluidity of the cell membrane also increase. So cholesterol now its function is to maintain the fluid. So it's going to try to decrease the fluidity. So like it prevents the phospholipid from moving apart from each other, so that the cell membrane just doesn't dissolve. Vice versa, if we decrease the temperature, so the fluidity of the cell membrane also decreases.
Fluidity. The fluidity
also decrease. It become more rigid. So cholesterol is going to act to prevent that. It is going to try to increase the fluidity. So it acts as a spacer. It prevents the phospholipid from getting too closer. And also we have saturated phospholipid and unsaturated phospholipid. So saturated phospholipid, it has no double bond. It usually exists within a solid at a room temperature. So it more rigid in comparison with the unsaturated phospholipid. They are usually oils. They do contain the double bond, so they are more fluid. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the main function of the cholesterol molecule in the cell membrane, and what will happen without it? Mình nên nói về cái chuyện mà nếu mà không có nó thì sao, cái chuyện xảy ra không? Let's talk about like what will happen without those components on the cell membrane. Like for example, what would happen if like without cholesterol molecules, or what would happen without the receptors, without the ion channels, something like that. You should talk about it, you know. Đó, tức là nếu gì xảy ra nếu mà em thiếu mất cholesterol molecule, thử coi cái màng nó bị làm sao. What will happen to the membrane if without cholesterol molecule? So it will become much more fluid. Nó sẽ trở nên rất là fluid, rất là di động, rất là lỏng lẻo hơn. Much more fluid, but much less rigid. Ít cứng hơn nhiều. It means that the cell can deform. The cell can deform easily. Cái tế bào nó có thể bị biến dạng một cách dễ dàng. And this is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Because the external pressure, những áp lực từ bên ngoài, external pressure caused by like maybe for example osmotic pressure, nó gọi là áp suất thẩm thấu, or other kind of pressure can cause the cell to deform and break. Nó thể gây cho cái tế bào nó bị deform, bị biến dạng và nó bể ra nha. So have to be careful without it. Okay, Miss Han, please continue.
Yeah. If we don't have the ion channels, so I think the problem is some ions, they cannot get into the cell membrane, which means that we can be lack of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? Okay. No. Now, so let's talk about like what does the glycoproteins molecules on the cell membrane, what does it do?
Glycoprotein?
The glycoprotein molecules on the cell membrane, outer membrane, what does it do?
They play a role in the immune system with antibodies. They
because
function
they act as antigen, kháng nguyên. They act as antigen, so it can how can I say, attract antibody in the body, so it plays a role in the immune system. Nó sẽ hấp dẫn cái kháng thể để bám vào nó. đóng vai trò trong phát hiện ra tế bào này, tế bào nọ.
Yeah.
It plays a role in cell recognition. Sự nhận diện tế bào.
Yeah.
Recognize if it's a bacteria, it's a pathogen. Nó phải thứ gây bệnh hay không. Or is it a cell of the body? Hay là nó là một cái loại cell mà của cơ thể chẳng hạn.
It is a cell body.
Right. Or is it like a cell, normal cell of the body? I mean, nó là cái tế bào bình thường của cơ thể hay là tế bào bệnh hay là cái gì đó. Nó sẽ giúp cho cái hệ miễn nhiễm phát hiện ra được. So it can help the immune system to recognize if it's a normal cell of the body or it's a pathogen or it's a sick affected cell. Tế bào đã bị ảnh hưởng chẳng hạn, something like that. And it also helps the cell to feel the surrounding environment. Nó giúp tế bào để cảm nhận cái môi trường bên ngoài của nó đó nha. It also helps the cell to perceive, cảm nhận, to perceive the outside environment. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Transport through the membrane. How many different types of transport and what molecules is transported?
So I think I already tell you about this one. Like for small non-polar molecules like oxygen or carbon dioxide, they can easily diffuse into or out of the cell, while some polar molecules like water, they also can diffuse through the membrane, but it cannot do that easily. It's a very slow process. That's why some special proteins, there are special proteins that can easily transport water into and out of the cell called aquaporins. Also for ions like potassium or sodium, they cannot flow in or out of the cellular membrane without the help of something else. And something else here is the transport protein. And that's what we call the ion channels. For big polar molecules like glucose, an ion channel cannot have. So now we have a protein called carrier protein to have to diffuse more glucose into or out of the cell.
All right, so different mode of transport. We have active transport, passive transport, including osmosis, and facilitated diffusion. Did you talk about it?
No, active.
Nó có 3 cái mode, đó là active transport, vận chuyển chủ động, and passive transport, vận chuyển bị động. Thì nó bao gồm cái gì? Passive transport included osmosis, thẩm thấu, and facilitated diffusion, sự khuếch tán có sự trợ giúp của channel, của kênh nào đó. Of course, active transport, you need a channel as well. Đương nhiên active transport cũng cần một cái kênh và nó giúp cho những phân tử đi qua, nhưng mà nó ngược lại với cái sự chênh lệch nồng độ hai bên. Active transport helps molecules move against the concentration gradient So it uses ATP for this task. Đương nhiên là nó active transport, vận chuyển chủ động, nó giúp những phân tử nó đi ra tế bào ngược lại với cái sự chênh lệch nồng độ nha. Thường là chênh lệch nồng độ hai bên là cái điều đương nhiên xảy ra. Bên nào nhiều hơn nó sẽ đi qua bên nào ít hơn. Nhưng mà đôi khi chúng ta cần phải làm cho nó đi ngược lại. Thì cái điều đi ngược lại, ngược tự nhiên, trái tự nhiên này nó cần phải có năng lượng ATP cho cái tác vụ này. Tức là từ bên mà đang ít bây giờ mình lại muốn cái bên ít đó nó đi qua bên nhiều hơn nhé hạn. Cho nên là cái đó phải dùng ATP nha. Còn mấy cái còn lại không có cần ATP. So active transport help molecules move against concentration gradient. Like for example, sometimes when, okay, naturally the place with more concentration, the substances will move to the place with a lower concentration. But sometimes you need to go the other way around. When the place with lower concentration, the molecules move to the place with like higher concentration. So that is against the concentration gradient, and you need ATP molecules for this task. You provide an energy for this task. So that's why it's called active transport, you know. Vận chuyển chủ động, mình cần điện, cần năng lượng. Là như vậy á. You understand it?
Yes. I also remember this one is kind of related to something called gradient concentration, and you mentioned here. But what is the difference? I can kind of like have an idea of the difference between active transport and passive transport. But why do we need to have the facilitated diffusion? Yeah, câu hỏi ở đây.
What do you say?
Like I kind of like understand the difference between the active and passive transport, but why do we have the facilitated diffusion?
Well, because sometimes molecules, they cannot enter the cell easily. They need help with the channels, you know, that is facilitated. Cái chữ facilitated là được xúc tiến á. Trợ giúp, xúc tiến bởi mấy cái channel. Tại đôi khi có nhiều phân tử nó không qua được. Tại vì cái khối lượng nó lớn quá chẳng hạn. Hoặc là nó polar. Nó phân cực, nó không qua được dễ dàng. Nó phải có sự trợ giúp nha. Nhưng mà cái facilitated diffusion nó vẫn là vận chuyển bị động. Tại vì sao? Nó vận chuyển bị động tại vì nó đâu cần năng lượng đâu. Mà nó chỉ được trợ giúp thôi. So facilitated diffusion does not require ATP because it just needs a channel to get things through, to help big molecules getting through and ion to get through. But it still moves according to the concentration gradient, not against it, okay? Accordingly. Nó vẫn di chuyển thuận theo đó, accordingly to the concentration gradient, not against it, không có chống lại nó.
Yeah.
So that's why you do not need energy, and this is still a passive transport, okay? Sometimes molecules are so big they need help.
So like
but if you have water, for example, it can get through the cell quite easily. So that is osmosis. It doesn't need energy, and it moves along the concentration gradient. Does not need help. Does not need energy. Đôi khi nước nó di chuyển qua và vào tế bào thông qua kiểu thẩm thấu nước thôi. Nơi nào nhiều nước hơn nó di chuyển, nơi nào ít nước hơn thôi. Và nó không cần năng lượng, nó cũng không cần được trợ giúp bởi cái gì cả, tại vì nước nó nhỏ lắm. Đôi khi nó vẫn thấm qua được. However, sometimes you need aquaporin to help, you know. Sometimes you do need that. Cái lỗ cho nước qua, đôi khi chúng ta vẫn cần nó. Alright, you understand the thing you're talking about now?
Yeah.
So these are the three different modes of transport. through the membrane. Okay, you should talk about cellular structures and the specific function now.
Yeah.
Okay, you need time for that, Miss Hunt? Do you need time for that?
No.
Okay, cellular structures and the specific functions, please.
I'm going to the center first and go spread them out. So we have nucleus. So the nucleus is basically the command and control center of the cell. It tells the cell what to do, how to grow, what proteins to make, or what lipids to produce. The nucleus, it has divided into two parts. The first part is it has a long strand of DNA known as chromatin. It's basically the instruction manual. It stores the genetic information of the cell and go deeper into the center. We have the nucleolus. It is like the center of the nucleus. So nucleolus, it creates DNA to it create ribosome RNA to make ribosomes. Ribosome consists of ribosome RNA plus protein, and also nucleolus is send message RNA or mRNA to the ribosome to make proteins. So all in all, we can say that the function of the nucleolus is producing proteins. And if we spread them out of the nucleus, we have a part called endoplasmic reticulum, or DER. It contains there are two types of ER, the rough ER and the smooth ER. The rough ER contains ribosomes. So ribosome is produce proteins. So
it produces protein chứ không phải là dạng bị động. It is produced, you know. Let's use the active form. It produces proteins.
It produces proteins. So the rough ER is contribute to producing proteins. Also, the rough ER transport proteins using vesicles. Yeah, vesicles. And the vesicles is later go to the protein is imbibed by the vesicles, and then that stuff is going to the Golgi body right after that. While the smooth ER, it has no ribosomes, but which means that it does not contribute to produce proteins, but it produces lipids, cholesterol, and hormones. It also helps in detoxification. It breaks down the toxins by making these molecules more water soluble, so they can be easily removed from the body or exited through the urine. The next one is Golgi body. Golgi body, it receives the vesicles, and it modifies the proteins that are in the vesicles by adding lipids and carbs to the proteins. So, and also it can fold the protein because the function of the protein is dependent on the shape of it. And later after that, it's export the protein out of the cell, and now the transport the cycle that surround the protein fills with the membrane, like it becomes a part of the cell. Some organelles I should talk about is we have mitochondria. It has
mitochondria. What is that inside?
Mitochondria.
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 Chondria. Mitochondria.
Mitochondria.
Nó có gì sai sai á. Chondria.
Chondria.
Dera nha. Chondria. Mitochondria.
Mitochondria.
Nó sai sai. Chondria. Dera.
Chondria. It had its own separate DNA. So this DNA is different from the DNA of the cell. So the mitochondria, it performs cellular respiration.
Yes.
So it takes the energy stored in fats and carbohydrates, and then it convert it into a molecule known as ATP or adenosine
triphosphate. ATP is basically adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate.
Yeah. Also, we have lysosome. Its purpose is break down food because it contains
breaking down food.
Its purpose is breaking down food. It contains digestive enzymes, and also in white blood cell, it can also destroy pathogens. So when a white blood cell engulf a pathogen in a process known as phagocytosis.
Phagocytosis. The cell eating. The cell eats. Tế bào nó ăn cái gì đó. The process that the cell eats bigger molecules, you know. Nó ăn một cái con rất to, ví dụ nó ăn một con vi khuẩn khác chẳng hạn. The cell eats like a bacteria, for example, a huge cell. That is phagocytosis. You also have another process. It's called pinocytosis. The cell drinks. Sự uống của tế bào. The cell drinks. That's when the cell actually take in smaller molecules, you know. Nó giống như là ăn thôi, nhưng mà thực sự là anh sẽ hấp thụ vào mấy cái phân tử nhỏ nhỏ hơn, không phải nguyên cả các tế bào. The cell drinking. Và xuất bào nữa nha. Exocytosis. Xuất bào. Còn mấy cái ăn với uống á, nó gọi là nhập bào. Endocytosis. So cell drinking and cell eating is actually belong to endocytosis. But we also have exocytosis, xuất bào nữa, để mà nó phóng thích ra ngoài tế bào cái gì. So exocytosis actually push out like waste product, những cái sản phẩm mà nó gọi là chất thải, waste products. It can push out proteins, hormones, you know. That's how you have the tuyến nội tiết. That's why you have the endocrine glands. Những tuyến nội tiết á, nó tiết ra hormone, nó thải ra môi trường bên ngoài. That's why you have endocrine glands and it secretes secretes. It secretes hormones and other substances. It can secrete hormones, enzymes, and other substances to the environment, you know, through exocytosis. Nó có thể tiết ra những cái hormone, cái men, enzyme và những chất khác ra ngoài tế bào thông qua cái quá trình gọi là exocytosis, xuất bào á. Exocytosis. Exo là ra ngoài, endo là vô bên trong nha.
Yeah. And also we have cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is basically the jelly-like fluid that is in the cell. All of the organelles dissolve in cytoplasm, and cytoplasm, it contains solutes like salt, electrolyte, and other stuff like carbohydrate.
Other substances. Other substances.
Yeah, other stuff.
Không có dùng chữ stuff nha, chữ stuff không có trịnh trọng. The word stuff, it's actually informal. You should not use it in an exam, you know, remember.
Really? Wow. Other substance like carbohydrate, lipids, or even free-floating ribosomes. And we also have the cytoskeleton. So the function of the cytoskeleton is to maintain the shape of the cell, and at the same time it provides the structural support. And the cytoskeleton, it consists of a network of 3 fibers. They are microtubules, microfilaments, and I think in intermediate filaments. Yeah, filaments. And the microtubules is the largest of all the 3 fibers, and made up of a protein called tubulin. A protein called tubulin. Tubulin. It provides a structural support and transportation service to the cell. Thanks to the microtubules, some vesicles can move from one part of the cell to another part. And the microfilaments, it is the smallest. It's made up of the protein called actin. So the microfilaments are involved in elongation and contraction, like it assists the cell to move. And the intermediate filaments, in terms of cell, in terms of size, is somewhere between the microtubules and microfilaments, and it provide mechanical support. So all 3 types, different types of fibers of cytoskeleton, they all have different function. Also, we have a thing called centrioles. Centriole là cái
centriole, nó là cái trung thể. Chứ phải tâm động nữa nha. Tâm động là cái từ centromere nha. Centromere là tâm động. Còn cái centriole là trung thể. So centrioles, yes, what about it?
Is active during cell division. So during that time, they form something known as the mitotic spindle, which consists of microtubules, and also it another function of it is it pull apart the chromosome. Like they allow the cell to be split into two. Also, we have the cellular and flagellar, cellular and flagellar. So they all play a role in the movement of the cell. Cellular, it consists of the tiny short hair-like structures. There are many short hair-like structures of the cilia, and the flagellar, it consists of a long whip-like structures. So there are only a few of them, due to the help of flagella, the cell can propel from one location to another.
Okay, anything else you want to talk about? Did you talk about cytoskeleton?
Yeah, cytoskeleton.
Bộ xương tế bào, cytoskeleton. There are 3 different types.
Yeah, I already talked about that. Like its function is to maintain the shape of the cell, and it consists of a network of 3 fibers. They are microtubules, microfilaments, and intermediate filaments. I think that is all I knew about. I know about the cell membrane.
Right. Okay, now I think let's move on. Sorry, let's move on to okay, so did you talk about like the endoplasmic reticulum, the ER, the smooth ER, and their functions? It functions as a production of, it produces lipid molecules, you know. And it also plays a big role in protecting the nucleus. Nguyên một cái mạng lưới đó nó sẽ bảo vệ cái nucleus khá tốt, với lại nó sản xuất ra lipids nha. If you have a place to produce protein that is called ribosome, you should have a place to produce the lipid for the phospholipid bimembrane, you know, bilayer, you know. Nếu mà mình có một cái nơi để sản xuất protein, ví dụ như là cái ribosome đi, thì cũng nên có một cái nơi sản xuất ra chất béo để mà ví dụ như là cái tạo cái màng phospholipid chẳng hạn. But the cell, I don't think it, okay, if the cell, it's a plant cell, it can produce sugar on its own because of chloroplast, you know. But if it's an animal cell, it cannot produce sugar on its own. It has to eat from other sources, you know. Nếu mà là tế bào thực vật đi, thì nó có cái chloroplast, nó có cái lục lạp, nó có thể nó tự quang hợp, nó tổng hợp ra đường được. Nhưng mà tế bào động vật á, nó không có khả năng đó, nó không có chloroplast. It doesn't have chloroplast, không có cái lục lạp. So it cannot produce sugar on its own. It needs to eat the plant, you know, nó phải ăn cây, ăn tế bào thực vật mới có đường được. To have the sugar. Alright, that's simple like that. Let me see. Did you talk about the cell wall as well?
Cell wall.
The cell wall?
It is plant in plants, right?
Yes.
No, I haven't. Like I think all of the things I have told you, it's just like the animal cell. I will look up to the cell plants. Mình cần phải xem cái tế bào của thực vật nó đúng không thầy?
Of course, plant cells has a cell wall. What is special about it, and what kind of function does it play? How does it make the cell become, the cell wall? Bức tường tế bào. Cell wall is a very thick structure, rất là dày nha. And it's made out of mainly cellulose molecules. Phần đông được tạo thành bởi những cái phân tử cellulose. Đường phức tạp, đường đa.
Yeah.
It's a complex sugar. And it makes the cell wall very thick, very rigid, and it's hard to break, khó bể, khó vỡ. It helps plant cell to withstand the environment. It helps plant cells to withstand the environment better. Nó chịu được cái môi trường bên ngoài tốt hơn nha. But it also causes the plant cell to be immobile. Không di động được. The plant cells does not move because of this one, because of plant cell, because of cell wall. But the animal cell does not have the cell wall, so that's why it can move easily. But the trade-off is it can move, yes, but the trade-off is it is much more softer than a plant cell. Cái gì cũng phải đánh đổi thôi. Nếu mà không có cái không có cái cell wall thì là tế bào động vật nó sẽ dễ dàng di chuyển hơn được nhiều. Nhưng mà nó mềm hơn nhiều, nó dễ bị ảnh hưởng, dễ bị hư hại, Okay. And also, did you talk about a lysosome? Tiêu thể?
No.
Miss Han, are you there?
Yes.
Did you talk about a lysosome and peroxisome? Cái thể mà nó chứa những cái enzyme tiêu hóa và cái thể mà nó chứa cái peroxide H2O2 á, để tiêu hóa và giải độc á. So lysosome contain what and peroxisome contain what?
Lysosome, the purpose of it is to break down food because it contains digestive enzymes, and in white blood cell it can destroy pathogens. And the lysosome and peroxisome is in the plant cells, right? Okay. I think I will look up to the plant cells later, because all the things that I have told you right now is just the animals cells.
All right, good. I think it's better to move on now to cell cycle and cell reproduction. Maybe you should have some time to gather your thoughts, Okay, you can talk about it now.
So the lifespan of a cell can be described by what is called cell cycle.
What is called?
What is called cell cycle. So the cell cycle is like a season of the year. The cell has time when it grows and divides, and other time when it doesn't divide. So there are two main parts in the lifespan of a cell, we have interphase and mitosis. So the interphase was like the primary, where we primarily have the cell growth occurred, but not division. Interphase is also where cells spend most of the time. Most cells live here, except cancer. And mitosis is the time where we have the active cell division. So I will go first deeply into interphase.
Okay.
So there are a few phases that occur within interphase. We have growth phase, which is G abbreviated.
G1.
Yeah.
It's a G1 phase. Yeah.
G1. It is the longest phase of the cell cycle. It produces extra organelles such as ribosomes and proteins. And from here, the cell has options where if it wants to continue growing and move towards the direction of the cell division, is going to the S phase, which is the synthesis. But some cells, instead of going forward to the S phase, they go in another direction way, which is the G0 or G0, where they have no more to division. Like there are some cells they don't want to divide or don't tend to divide. For example, we have neurons in the brain. Like once our brain is formed, it doesn't necessarily need to divide anymore. So it just have the cells grow. And so back to the way they want to continue to grow and move towards to S phase. So the synthesis of S phase, that is when we have that is where we have the DNA replication occurs in here. It take 23 pairs of chromosomes. It's gonna duplicate into 46 pairs. The next phase is G2. It is another growth phase. This is where we prepare for mitosis. Like in here we make microtubules. And the last phase is that is all about interphase, and we have mitosis. Mitosis is the time when we have the active cell division. It is the final season of the cell cycle where our cell will divide. Once it's divided, it turns into two cells. So and each of the cells will next enter the G1 phase. And also, cell cycle is not a process that occurs in a very unchecked manner. There are actually a lot of regulation in here. So between the G1 and the S phase, we regulate before we get into the DNA replication. That is the first checkpoint. Another checkpoint is between the G2 and the step where we jump into the mitosis. And that is another checkpoint before we get into mitosis. And there are a couple of proteins that regulate this process. The two main ones are cyclin-dependent kinases. We often use it as CDK. So in this kind of protein, all of the different types are always present in a cell. And there's an interesting fact that is because we call it the cyclin-dependent kinase, and kinase is
CDK,
usually
right? CDK, cyclin-dependent kinase, yeah.
Yeah, kinase. Kinase is something that adds a phosphate group. So
Right, CDK, wait, are you sure?
Yeah,
Kinase là một cái enzyme mà làm một cái nhiệm vụ di chuyển gì đó. Kinetic là di chuyển, kinesis. ACE là enzyme. Yeah, CDK, yeah. But remember, I think cyclin dependent kinase. Yeah, it has played a role in the cell cycle. Yes, it does. That's a bit deep, I think. The CDK.
And their default cyclin-dependent kinase, or CDK, their default form is inactive. So in order to be active, we need to have the appearance of cyclin. So cyclin, it needs we need the specific cyclins made up at specific times. And why are they so important? So because when we have a cyclin-dependent kinase, CDK, it is only active when it is bound to a specific cyclin. So for example, that is the reason why we can see the cyclin D or cyclin E, the production of cyclin D and cyclin E in G1, because cyclin D and cyclin E is later is gonna bound into the CDK2 and CDK4, which is later be phosphorylated, and is affected RB. RB is like a protein that inhibit.
I think you're going a bit too deep into biochemistry now, and these things are, I think, a bit too deep. Cái này đã đi qua đến biochem rồi nha. 252 rồi. It's a bit too deep, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think in the real exam there was something like CDK, you know, so deep.
Yeah, okay. Well, that is all I know about cell cycle. So in total, it's like there are two parts, interphase and mitosis. Interphase is to primarily have cell growth occur, but it does not have cell division. And mitosis is the final season of cell cycle where our cell will divide. And also one thing to remember is that it's not always going to the way that G1 as G2 and M. It can end at the G1. Some cells, however, instead of going forward to the S phase, it goes in another direction, which goes into the G0, and with that, the cells does not divide anymore. Like they just grow.
Okay, right. Yeah. So what about G0 then? What would cause the cell to go into like a very dormant state? That's when the cells does not reproduce anymore. What will cause the cell to go into the G0 state? Do you know? Like sometimes when the environment is not favorable. Cái môi trường nó không có được thuận lợi ấy, để mà sinh sản ấy. When the environment is not favorable, what will happen?
Conducive.
The cell will decide to stop their reproduction, and the cell will go into the G0 state until the environment around the cell is favorable again for reproduction. Then the cell will continue its interphase. Nó giống như là kiểu mà bây giờ nếu mà cái môi trường thức ăn, nước uống, môi trường dinh dưỡng nó không có thuận lợi đủ để cho tế bào nó sinh sản tiếp á,
Yeah.
thì cái tế bào nó sẽ nó ngưng lại, nó không có sinh sản tiếp nha. So basically it's all about like if the cell it's not is in an favorable state when there's not enough nutrient, for example, to reproduce, then the cell will stop reproducing. It happens, you know.
Yeah. So
Nhớ là cứ ăn nhiều, cứ nhớ là ăn nhiều đẻ nhiều thôi.
I come to the example the G of the a cell going to a G zero, which is the neurons in the brain. So I'm like kind of like confused, like it's always neurons in the brain is always going to G0, or some of them can go into S phase.
The neuron in the brain is a special case. It's highly specialized. So it's highly specialized, and some of them actually loses the ability to reproduce. Nó quá biệt hóa rồi đến cái mức mà cái neuron trong não á, một số cái neuron nó mất cái khả năng mà nó mất cái khả năng để mà tái tạo luôn á, chứ nói gì đến cái chuyện mà nó sản sinh ra thêm. Or you can say it reproduces very poorly, rất nghèo nàn luôn á, nó không có thể nào tái tạo được mấy luôn á. So when you have a nerve damage, thiệt hại thần kinh chẳng hạn, nerve damage, the person almost never really recover, you know, gần như không thể nào mà recover nổi luôn khi có nerve damage. Nó không thể nào mà nó tái tạo được luôn nha, tại vì cái nerve nó cực kỳ highly specialized, nó biệt hóa quá cao rồi đến mức mà nó mất luôn khả năng, nó gần như mất khả năng luôn tái tạo luôn á.
Là specialized đó là biệt hóa đúng không thầy?
Specialized được biệt hóa, đúng rồi. So neuron is actually not easy to reproduce. Cho nên để chữa mấy cái vấn đề liên quan đến neuron, bây giờ ta không thèm nghĩ chuyện biệt hóa nó nữa, dùng tế bào mầm để mà tạo ra tế bào neuron mới cho rồi luôn. So right now, instead of focusing on like helping the neuron to reproduce itself or to repair itself, people depends on something called stem cell, tế bào mầm, stem cell, because they will differentiate into new neuron cell, you know, nó sẽ biệt hóa, nó sẽ biến đổi bản thân cái tế bào mầm đó thành ra một cái tế bào neuron mới. But then once again, you need to teach those neuron cells the skills that have been lost. Nhưng mà mình sau khi nó tạo thành neuron mới, mình vẫn phải dạy cho những cái neuron mới những cái kỹ năng mà đã bị mất đi từ cái neuron cũ, you know. Nhưng đâu có dễ đâu, it's not that easy.
How can we teach them?
Well, you have to go through training again. Like for example, if you have if your neurons the neurons are responsible for movement, for example, running, playing the piano, sitting, doing sports, then you have to do everything again, you know, from day one, to teach them how to work and operate again, you know. Học lại từ đầu luôn á, một khi mà mình đã phải có cái neuron mới như vậy. So it's actually a long process, you know, you wouldn't want to have that. So maybe we have to find new ways to make the process less painful, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think I get it.
All right, got it. Okay, so let's talk about mitosis and meiosis itself, because you did talk about interphase only.
Yeah. So mitosis is a type of cell division that involves somatic or non-sex cells. For example, we have nerve cells, blood cells, or skin cells. And mitosis involves only in diploid cells, lượng bùi, bao lượng bùi, and mitosis. The end result of it is we're going to have two generally identical daughter cells. And I wonder why is like daughter cell but not son cells. Why they use daughter here. And there are four phases in mitosis. They are prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And also at the end of the completion of telophase, there's also a phase called cytokinesis.
Cytokinesis, yeah.
And so I'm going to dip into each phase. For prophase, the chromatin or the DNA strands coils into chromosomes, and at the time the nucleus begins to dissolve, and thus the chromosomes kind of like get spilled into the cytoplasm of the cell, and ultimately objects called spindle fibers, I think, begin to grow and form. And in the next phase, which is metaphase, the spindle fibers, which have just grown and formed in the last prophase, prophase, they attach to the central mirrors.
Central mirror, yeah.
To each chromosome, and the spindle fibers, they pull the chromosomes to the cell, to the equal. Đường xích đạo ở đây kia, I forgot that word, but like equality.
What do you mean? Say again?
Yeah, cái đường xích đạo ở đây
equatorial axis. Equatorial axis. Equatorial axis. Nó gọi là cái trục xích đạo. Equatorial axis, or you can say equatorial plane.
Yeah.
Or you can say equator. Okay, let's just say equator. Okay, equator of the cell. Let's say that. Cái xích đạo của tế bào, the equator of the cell, or equatorial plane, mặt phẳng xích đạo, or equatorial axis, trục xích đạo.
Yeah, and that is when we come into the next phase, which is the anaphase. So the spindle fibers rip apart the chromosomes, like one chromatid pulled to each direction. It's kind of like I think the anaphase is the easiest one to recognize. And we have and then we have telophase. So the spindle fibers dissolve, and in this phase, the spindle fibers dissolve and break down. At the time, the nucleus begins to regrow and reform surrounding the genetic material. I think that is because they, need to protect the genetic material.
Okay.
And also the chromatist unwinds into chromatin, like they loose stringes their version of DNA called chromatin. And also we have cytokinesis. It is the dividing of the cytoplasm. So in animals and in plants, they are quite different. In animals, the cell membranes pinch inward and inward and inward until the two cells are separated. But in plants, because they have something called cell plate, So the cell plate begins to separate the two new cells.
Okay, so what causes the two part of the cell to separate is actually called the cleavage furrow. Cleavage furrow. Cleavage furrow. Nó giống như là một cái đoạn nó siết lại á. It's the cleavage furrow. It's formed by a structure that's made of actin molecules, you know. Nó siết hai cái bên tế bào lại, cắt ra một phát, được tạo thành bởi cái phân tử actin. A formation of cleavage furrow, which is made of actin, will split the cell into two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that is all I know about mitosis.
Okay.
Do I need to add something? Like, do I?
All right. So my question for you is: does all cell undergo mitosis at the same rate or at the same time? Can you answer that question? Có phải mọi tế bào đều trải qua nguyên phân ở cùng một cái tốc độ, cùng thời gian không?
No, I don't think so.
Why?
I think can I have a moment to think?
Of course, you can have a moment to think. Okay, what do you say?
At the same time, you mean here?
No, they don't reproduce at the same time. Trust me. Nó tùy vào cái nhu cầu nha. It also depends on each individual cell's needs to reproduce or not. You know, like for example, skin cells. We shed skin cell. We shed skin cells very often, so that's why skin cell it reproduces or undergoes mitosis very often. Tại vì cái tế bào da mình mất da đi, da chết nhiều, mình sẽ phải tạo da mới liên tục, cho nên là cái tế bào da nó sẽ undergo mitosis rất là nhiều và rất là thường xuyên. Imagine that but deeper layers of cells that is not subjected to the environment or the elements so much, they do not need to undergo mitosis very often. So their rate of mitosis is much less frequent. Những cái lớp tế bào bên dưới mà nó không có bị ảnh hưởng bởi môi trường và những thành tố thiên nhiên các thứ, ví dụ tế bào mỡ bên trong bên dưới chẳng hạn, thì nó sẽ undergo mitosis rất là chậm hơn và ít thường xuyên hơn nhiều. Nó tùy vào nhu cầu tế bào thôi à. Like for example, now if you have like let's say a burn, okay, a burn, một cái vết mà phỏng chẳng hạn, your skins are basically dead, okay. It needs, and also like the underlying tissues, những cái mô nằm ở bên dưới, underlie, những cái mô nằm ở bên dưới, it also damaged too. So all of those cells need to undergo mitosis to repair the damage, you know, để mà nó sửa chữa cái thiệt hại đó. So suddenly, a lot of cells at the burn undergo mitosis, and it undergo mitosis faster, you know, do cái nhu cầu thôi. Nó sẽ sửa chữa cái thiệt hại gây ra bởi cái vết phỏng đó một cách rất là nhanh hơn và thường xuyên hơn. Mà không nhu cầu, không có cần nữa thì nó không undergo mitosis thôi, đơn giản như vậy. If there's no need for mitosis, then it will not undergo mitosis, you know. Okay? Right. So my other question for you is the cell in the ovary and testis. Does it also undergo mitosis? Cái tế bào ở cái vùng buồng trứng và cái tinh hoàn á, nó có xảy ra, có diễn ra cái chuyện mà nguyên phân hay không? Hay chỉ có giảm phân thôi? Or only meiosis? Does it also undergo mitosis as well? What do you think?
No, I think the cells in the ovary and testis part.
The what? Ovary and testis.
Yeah, ovary and testis là nó sẽ thuộc về kiểu
The answer is very simple. Any cell can be damaged. Any cell needs repair and reproduce, you know? So it means any cell in the body can undergo mitosis, except from highly specialized cells such as neurons. Sometimes it doesn't, you know, reproduce. It doesn't undergo mitosis to repair, you know, like I already said before. Gần như tất cả mọi tế bào cơ thể đều có thể trải qua nguyên phân đó, bao gồm luôn cái ovary và testis nha. Ngoại trừ cái trường hợp mà cái tế bào thần kinh khi mà nó biệt hóa quá cao đi thì nó sẽ mất dần cái khả năng mà giảm phân, nguyên phân chứ, để mà sửa chữa các thiệt hại. So keep in mind that the ovary and testis cells can also undergo mitosis, okay? But cell of the ovary and testis can undergo meiosis to produce eggs and sperms. Okay, you talk about it now, please.
Can you say that again?
Cái tế bào ở vùng cái buồng trứng và cái tinh hoàn, ngoài cái chuyện nó có thể tự xảy ra cái chuyện mà nguyên phân, nó cũng có thể diễn ra cái chuyện mà giảm phân nữa để tạo ra trứng và tinh trùng. Thì bây giờ em nói về chuyện meiosis đi.
Yeah. Meiosis is the form of nuclear cell division that result in daughter cells that have one half the chromosome numbers as the original cell. So in humans, this means that the chromosome number is reduced from 46 to 23. And in organisms that are diploid, the end result.
We have a term called haploid and diploid. Đơn bội và lưỡng bội. So haploid cell, like for example, n equal to 23 and 2n equal to 46, for example, these are diploids.
Yeah. So the germ cells undergo meiosis to give rise to sperm and eggs, as you mentioned before.
Okay.
So I think I will go deep into each phase of meiosis. So in the interphase, chromosomes are not yet visible, but DNA has been duplicated, you know, meiosis is, I think it's like kind of like more complicated in comparison with
mitosis, because there are two main phases in meiosis.
There are 6 stages within each of the divisions, and first of all we have phase 1. So in this phase, prior to prophase, chromosomes replicate to form sister chromatids.
Nhiều sắc tờ chị em đúng rồi, sister chromatids, very good.
Yeah. You know, they are initially 4 chromatids and 2 chromosomes for each of the 23 chromosome pairs. So So in this phase, the spindle fibers appear. Is very important for the successful division of chromosomes.
Of course, because if the spindle does not appear, nothing will move to the two sides of the cell. Nếu mà cái sợi mà spindle nó không xuất hiện á, từ cái centriole, từ cái trung thể á, thì chromosome nó không thể nào bị kéo qua hai cực của tế bào được.
Yeah.
And then this thing will not happen.
Yeah. The next one is metaphase 1. So in this phase, the maternal and paternal version of the same chromosomes, I think they call them as a homologous.
It's called homologous.
Homologous chromosomes aligned along.
Homologous chromosome.
Yeah,
Nó gọi
homologous.
là chromosome đồng dạng. Homo là cùng, đồng cái gì đó, cùng cái gì đó. Homologous chromosome đồng dạng.
Yeah. Aligned along the equator of the cell. Yeah, I think this one is kind of like the same with.
It's not really the same. It resemble mitosis, but it's not the same. Nó nhìn na ná giống như là giống như là cái mitosis thôi, nhưng mà nó không phải y chang đâu. Cái sự khác biệt chính ở đây chính là cái prophase 1 thôi, nó có crossing over.
Yeah.
The main difference here is that prophase 1 has crossing over of the homologous chromosome, you know, and it's a random crossing over, okay? Nó trao đổi chéo ngẫu nhiên nha. It's random crossing over of the homologous chromosome. And what does that mean? It results in so many different combinations. Nó dẫn đến rất là nhiều cái combinations, nhiều cái sự kết hợp of the chromosome. Và cái điều này chính nhờ cái vụ mà random crossing over này nó làm tăng cái gì? Nó làm tăng cái sự đa dạng á. It increased like the variation in the species. It increased the different number of variation in the species. So
Yeah.
when something bad happened that kill most of the population of a species, some other species can survive because of this variation that helps them survive better, and so they can reproduce more, and then that there will not be an extinction of the whole species. Do là sự mà nó có nhiều cái biến đổi về cái hình thái, về cái kiểu gen khác nhau, thì khi mà có một cái điều gì đó rất xấu tệ xảy ra đối với lại những cái giống loài đó, phần đông nó chết hết, nhưng mà vẫn có một số con nhỏ nhỏ nó vẫn sống được, thì nó vẫn có thể tồn tại được, nó vẫn có thể sinh sản để cho cái giống loài nó không bị tuyệt chủng, you know.
Yeah.
So basically, random crossing over is very important for meiosis, and also very important for the survival of the creature, of the species, sorry, cho sự tồn tại của cái giống loài đó, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you continue from the prophase 1, please?
Yeah. So next one we're gonna have
We are going to have. Cẩn thận đi thi phải formal nha. Remember, when you go to an exam, it must be formal, you know.
Yeah. Next one, I'm going to talk about the anaphase 1. So in this phase, each of the homologous chromosome is pulled towards opposite poles of the cell, and this equally divide the DNA between the two cells, which will be formed. Also, the next one is telophase 1. So during the telophase 1, the nuclear envelope reforms, and the spindle fibers disappear. And in cytokinesis 1, the cytoplasm and the cell divide result in two cells that are technically haploid.
Technically haploid, I see.
And so we come to the meiosis 2. So the prophase 2 and is kind of like identical to their counterpart in meiosis 1.
Okay.
And in metaphase 2, chromosome lined up in a single file along the equator of the cell. And this is in contrast of the metaphase 1,
Okay.
when chromosome lined up in homologous pairs.
Okay.
So like this one is single, but in metaphase 1 it is paired.
Exactly. And also it moves to the two sides of the cells the same way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, next one, please.
And then we have anaphase 2. In this phase, the sister chromatids are pulled to opposite poles of the equator. Then we have telophase 2. This stage is the same as telophase 1. And also we have cytokinesis 2. Again, the cytoplasm and the cell divide produce two non-identical haploid daughter cells. And as this is happening, the product now we have is 4 non-identical haploid daughter cells, each containing one chromosome, consists of one chromatid. Yeah. I think that is all about I know about
meiosis 1.
Yeah, also.
Okay, is there another interface between meiosis 1 and meiosis 2? Giữa hai cái kỳ nguyên giảm phân 1 và giảm phân 2 nó có cái interface nữa không? Nó có cái kỳ trung gian nữa không?
Interface. Yeah. In meiosis 1, they have
không có nha, giữa kỳ giảm phân 2 1 và 1 giảm phân 1 nó không hề có interface một lần nữa nha. You have to understand that there's no interface between in meiosis 1 and 2, okay? Don't be confused with that, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Careful.
When I watch, I kind of like watch some different videos, and there are some they mention the pro meta phase, and some they didn't.
It's sometimes they break it into like too much details, you know, đôi khi người ta phá ra thành nhiều cái chi tiết quá chẳng hạn. But don't worry about it. It just don't worry about it. Okay. Now, so what happened during meiosis 2 then? After you have two cells that is diploid.
Diploid.
After meiosis 1, you have two cells that is diploid, right? Lưỡng bội, hai cái tế bào lưỡng bội sau giảm phân 1, right?
Yeah.
So what happened next then?
After two rounds of meiosis, we end up with 4 non-identical haploid daughter, cái từ gì ta? Gameters, I think. Gameters. Nó là giáo tử hay
giao tử. I forgot that word. Gametes. Giao tử gametes. Ủa giao tử 4 giao tử là giảm phân 2 nó mới tạo ra cái đó chứ. After meiosis 2 you have 4 gametes, 4 different gametes.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm kind of like confused, like when I did the research about cell division and cell cycle, we always come to a drawing, like a circle, and then we have the interface and mitosis. But I wonder where the meiosis be in that circle.
Sometimes I just don't understand what you're talking about. You know. Sorry, I got confused now.
Kiểu là sẽ có thưa ông, khi mà học về cái cell cycle á, thì sẽ có một cái vòng tròn và nó sẽ có kiểu là G1, S, G2 và M là mitosis.
Cái đó là interface nha.
Interface.
Okay, look at this one. G1, S, G2. You mean this one?
Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, it's cell cycle.
Remember, this one basically tells you the time that the cell span in. Cái thời gian mà cái tế bào của nó, phần đông của nó dành cho interface nha. Most of the life span of the cell it's spent in interface, which is G1, S and G2. Only a very small time it's spent in mitosis, okay? Or meiosis. Phần đông thời gian tế bào nó sống là nó interface. Còn cái thời gian để nguyên phân giảm phân nó ít lắm, rất nhỏ.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
I mean where the meiosis in that picture? Like,
well, I don't think people do that anymore, I think. Maybe it's better to just hình như không bao giờ có người ta vẽ cái hình như vậy luôn á. I don't think people ever draw those pictures like that. But anyway, always G1, G2S and G2, that is interface, okay? And then you can have meiosis 1, meiosis 2, okay? Sau cái nguyên dạng, sau cái interface là sẽ tới cái giảm phân 1, rồi sau đó giảm phân 2 nha. Just remember that. Sometimes they are not going to draw these things for you, you know? Đôi khi không có vẽ ra đâu.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's here. Let's try this picture. There you go. You have a picture here. Interface G1 nè, S nè, and then there's no G2, right? No có vẽ G2 ở đây. Oh, there you go. Interface G2 here. And then crossing over prophase 1, and then metaphase 1 here, and then anaphase 1, and then telophase 1, and then split. Nó biến thành hai cái nè. You split into like, bây giờ á, sau cái prophase sau cái telophase 1 á, sau khi giảm phân, sau cái meiosis 1 á, thì là chúng ta có cái gì? Hai cái tế bào đơn bội nha. You have two cell that is haploid, but then this cell will continue to split in half again. Cái tế bào này tiếp tục nó phân chia thành giao tử.
Yeah.
Split in half again. Cái meiosis 2 nó y chang như là cái mitosis vậy đó, không gì khác luôn á. Meiosis 2 is extremely similar to mitosis. It's no different. No crossing over again. Nó không có cái vụ mà trao đổi chéo lần nữa đâu. And then you have 4 different zygotes. Now the sister chromatids are called chromosome now, okay? Mấy cái nhịp sắc thử chị em này bây giờ nó được gọi là chromosome luôn nha. Đổi tên. So for male, tế bào của nam giới đi. So for male cells, it will become 4 sperm cells, okay? Nó trở thành 4 cái tế bào mà nó thành 4 cái giao tử đực, tức là cái cái sperm á, cái tinh trùng á.
Yeah.
For female cells, these thing develops. Only one of those things become an egg, okay? The other three becomes what? It's called polar body. Thể phân cực. Nó dùng để nuôi cái trứng. So for female cells, you have 4 gametes, but only one of them become an egg. Chỉ có một cái giao tử này nó trở thành một cái egg thôi. 3 cái còn lại nó sẽ thoái hóa, nó trở thành polar body. The other 3 will degrade and becomes only one zygote become an egg, and the other 3 become polar body that will kind of feed the egg with nutrients. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now, we have chromosomal map and chromosomal complement something. Have you do research about it?
Yeah.
Have you done that? Okay, so how many chromosomes, or what is chromosome map now for human?
Yeah.
I'm confused now. What do they mean by chromosome map? Bộ gen is a genome. I think that what I mean is a genome. The genome. Bộ gen is a chromosome mapping. You can see here. Can I have HD, please? There you go. This is a chromosome map you're talking about. Can you talk something about it? Can you say something about it?
There's 2 terms, chromatin and chromosome. So
chromosome là nhiễm sắc thể, nó là cái dạng mà rất đậm đặc condensed của DNA. Chromosome is basically a very condensed form of DNA. Chromatin, cái vùng nhân. Chromatin is the region inside the nucleus that has a lot of DNA in there. So I think it's better to just see the distinction. There. Cái chromatin là cái vùng nhân nha. Trong cái quá trình mà interface á, thì không có lý do gì mà cái DNA hay là cái chromatin này nó phải đậm đặc lại cả. Chỉ khi nào em trải qua mitosis hay meiosis thì mới cần phải đậm đặc lại để mà nó thành chromosome mà thôi. Ok. Cái chromatin hay chromosome vốn bản chất nó là một, nhưng mà nó ở cái dạng đặc hơn hay là cái dạng loãng ra thôi. Cái dạng chromatin là cái dạng loãng ra, xong rồi nó là cái vùng nhân ở bên trong cái nucleus. Còn cái chromosome là cái dạng đặc hơn của cái DNA thôi. So basically chromatin is what? You can see DNA is packaged by special protein called histone to form chromatin. Đó, cái vùng nhân này nó là DNA được gói ghém là trong những cái protein đặc biệt, nó gọi là histone để tạo thành chromatin. But when chromatin further condenses to form chromosome, you see, cái chromatin nó vẫn còn loãng lắm, nó phải được đậm đặc hơn nhiều nữa để tạo thành chromosome nha. Cho nên chromatin là vùng nhân thôi, nhưng mà chromosome là nhiễm sắc thể. Vốn bản chất của nó đều là DNA cả, nhưng mà cái nào đặc hơn cái nào thôi. You understand what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so back to chromosomal map. What can you say about it? We're done with that, with this one, I think. Please say something.
Yeah. I think I just come to the definition of chromosome, and I don't really know much about the chromosome mapping.
Okay, I'll tell you. Basically, the chromosome map, it tells you how many different chromosomes are there in one cell, human cell, okay? How many pairs of chromosomes are there in a human cell? Có bao nhiêu bộ nhiễm sắc thể trong một cái tế bào của con người? So we have 23 pair of chromosomes, or totally we have 46 chromosomes in a nucleus of a human cell. Ok, chúng ta có 23 bộ chromosome, tức là 46 cái nhiễm sắc thể. Bộ là đôi mà, 46 nhiễm sắc thể trong cái nucleus, trong cái nhân của cái tế bào con người. Ok.
Yeah.
So the last one, the 23rd one, the 23rd pair is called the sex chromosome. Cái bộ nhiễm sắc thể cuối cùng số 23, the 23rd chromosome pair, it's called the sex chromosome. Nhiễm sắc thể giới tính.
Yeah.
And for male it's XY, and for female it's XX. But that is only true for human, ok? Nó chỉ đúng cho con người thôi nha. Đối với loài chim thì là XY lại là nữ, lại là con cái. Còn XX lại là con nam, là con đực. Alright, so the 23rd one is the sex chromosome, and the other chromosomes determine the other traits of that species. Tất cả những cái các nhiễm sắc thể khác nó sẽ quyết định ra được những cái tính trạng khác của những cái con trong cái giống loài đó, you know.
Yeah.
Alright, I think that's all you need to know, I think. And maybe sometimes think about like diseases, nghĩ về những cái bệnh chẳng hạn. Think about diseases such as Down syndrome, for example. Think about Turner syndrome, bệnh Turner, hội chứng Turner. Or think about Klinefelter syndrome, hội chứng Klinefelter. Think about hội chứng siêu nữ, superwoman syndrome, and something like that, you know. Hãy nghĩ về những cái bệnh di truyền do những sắc thể như vậy. Like think about like diseases with the chromosome. Think about diseases with the chromosomes, you know. Like for example, Down syndrome happens. What happened during Down syndrome chromosome? See, nè, cái chromosome số 21 có vấn đề nè. There's a trisomy of the chromosome 21. So basically, instead of like a pair like this, the 21st chromosome has a 3 copies, you see. Thay vì là có đôi giống vậy, thì cái nhiễm sắc thể thứ 21 của người bệnh Down á, nó có 3 cái copy lận.
Yeah.
Cho nên là Down syndrome, bệnh Down còn có được biết đến như là trisomy 21. Tam cái gì mà tam bội 21 nha. Very good. And then you can see other one like what did I say? Other syndrome, Turner syndrome. Hội chứng Turner thì sao? So it's something to do with the sex chromosome. You see, there's only one X chromosome for this woman. Nhiễm sắc thể giới tính bị mất đi, nó chỉ có một cái X thôi. So it has one normal sex chromosome, and that's only one normal sex chromosome. Okay, so it's lacking something. So this baby has Turner syndrome, and they will not survive for too long, you know, không có sống được lâu quá đâu. And of course, all of these syndrome can cause infertility. So vô sinh. Okay, you should search for these things as well, like Klinefelter syndrome. How about Klinefelter syndrome? Hội chứng Klinefelter. So you have nó là nhiễm sắc thể giới tính, nó có vấn đề. There's like a abnormal sex chromosome problem. You have XXY, so one extra X chromosome. So you have totally 47 chromosome in general. Nhìn chung là thay vì là XY như nam bình thường, nó có XXY lận. Cho nên là tổng cộng có 47 chromosome. Or superwoman, hội chứng siêu nữ. So you have XXX, trisomy X. Nó là tam bội của cái X, của cái nhiễm sắc thể giới tính á. So it's a trisomy X. And of course, all of these syndrome cause the individuals to be infertile and they cannot live for so long, không sống được lâu và bị vô sinh. Alright, do you have any more questions for me?
No, I think
Okay, so next.
Okay, that's the end of my videos. Please like, share this video with your friends, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and press on the bell button next to the subscribe button so you can get notified about my new uploads, okay? You can also press follow my Facebook, but please don't add me on Facebook as friends, okay? Cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi nha. Các bạn hãy nhấn vào like, chia sẻ video này bạn bè các bạn. Nhấn vào nút đăng ký kênh YouTube mình và nút cái chuông kế bên cạnh để đăng ký kênh đó, để mà các bạn sẽ được thông báo về những video mới nha. Các bạn cũng có thể nhấn vào nút theo dõi Facebook mình, nhưng nhớ đừng kết bạn Facebook mình nha. Thank you and see you. Bye.